Before I get started with the just this video update, and thanks for coming and checking it out, I want to say any money that this video makes in advertising, I'm going to see if I can't toss that over to Feeding America. Obviously, as this crisis continues, clearly food banks are, I guess, a really big asset to those, especially those in need and are struggling just to be able to get the food that they need. So that's going to be something that I'm going to do. If you guys can do something yourselves, I encourage you to check that out, or check out any local food banks in the area. Being wherever you guys live, in this world, obviously, having an impact locally will be the first and key aspect. So with that, I do thank everybody who's sent me just wonderful messages over the last couple weeks while I'm continuing to recover. Excuse me. And it's been an awful experience, but also an eye-opening one. And that's kind of what this video is going to focus in on. You could probably tell I'm a little bit lower energy than normal, and I think that's okay. Honestly, this is probably the best I've felt in over 2 weeks, enough so that I could sit down and actually put myself in front of a camera and sit down and talk to you guys today. So I'm going to talk to you guys about my entire experience, the good and the bad with it all, and what symptoms I had, and kind of that process. Major shout out to my wife Julie, who was an all-star. If anything, at the end of the day, if there's ever any decision when you look back at one person's life and says, "Wow, that was if they did one thing right," I was asking her to marry me, because she took amazing care of me. She took care of the kids, especially while I was down and out. So I have no idea how I got it at all. I know that was the number one question a lot of the doctors seem to ask. I also have no confidence that I actually had it. 2 doctors have told me that I had it, but I did have a test. Finally was able to get a test done, and it came back negative, which actually was more reassuring than I thought it would be. But the doctor also said that it means that you either don't have it anymore, or you never had it, or the test failed. And from what they said and what online says, that's anywhere from a 30 to 50% chance of failure. And so there's a real, first thought I had about all this process was man, this is a messed up process. So there's still a lot of learning. And that's kind of where the negative comes in, is unless I'm able to go get an antibody test, I have no idea if I'm immune. But obviously the doctors did say that, there's no way you don't have COVID. So, and I was tested for strep. I was tested for flu. I was tested for a lot of other things. All those came back negative. And I've never experienced anything quite as discomforting, anything quite as just this whole experience. And even if it wasn't, that's just the weirdest thing about it, is that I have no idea. And I wish I knew. I wish I was an easy definitive answer. But the test itself was just so discomforting. It was just the worst test I've ever had. I thought the flu test was uncomfortable, and this was tickling the back of it felt like it's tickling the back of your brain. That's just how deep they had to go. So long story. So what happened? How did this all come to pass? It was, obviously more than 2 weeks ago now, where I wasn't feeling great. And, there's a lot of stress going around. There's a lot of stuff that was going around. I'm a guy who suffers from allergies, big surprise. And at first, it started off where I was I'm wondering if, maybe I got into some dust, maybe somebody just poured pollen all over me or something. It started off with just a headache, and it wasn't going away. And I was okay, so that's what we called the teledoc, and they said you need to go to the ER, just because they were concerned for it could be any number of things, and anybody complains of a headache. So that's the thing. That was the first real fear, because I was well, if I haven't been exposed, I'm definitely being exposed by going to the ER. So I go to the ER, and so my symptoms essentially by that time, because it was Monday when I called. Sunday was when I was really feeling bad. Body aches, fever. I had the headache. I was very fatigued. And so with those 4 symptoms, I just was feeling incredibly awful. And thankfully at the time, no respiratory issues. Minor cough, like when people said, "Are you coughing?" It wasn't like uncontrollably, but the occasional cough here and there. And so then, I go to the ER, masked up, they won't admit me, which is good. So they run all the tests, like I said, the flu and all that other stuff. And all that comes back. And that's when the doctor sits, comes in. He's like, "Yeah, I'm sorry, you got COVID." And I'm like, "Man, that's horrible and bad." And they were like, "Well, who have you talked to? Do you know anybody who has it?" And I was like, "No, I have absolutely no idea." The only, in my mind, it could only have done from like a grocery pickup or more, because we've been self-quarantined in that regards. The following like week and a half was like very long. Eventually I started somewhat feeling it in my lungs. Like eventually, like it felt like my lungs, there was a little cloud, but it was very minor. And I told Julie at the end of the day, like that is such kind of a blessing, because for me, like I remember vividly as a kid getting bronchitis and being very scared, because it's like, closing down your airways. It was like always really annoying. I hate bronchitis. Anybody ever is like, says they have it or they're getting over it, I'm like, you might see me just like immediately like leave. Like I've had very, very bad experiences growing up with bronchitis, respiratory diseases. Scare me, just hands out, flat out. Same thing with the kids. Like I remember, like even when Maddie was like real little, she just having some respiratory issues, and it scares me as a parent. It scared me as a kid, and so my biggest fear was like, especially with all the reports, like, oh my gosh, like what's this going to be like? But thankfully, didn't really have any problems with breathing outside of what we probably determined as more anxiety later, and that was more actually going into week 2. So week 1, I wasn't strong enough to even like hold a controller to play a game. I did catch up on all things like the Flash, because I was finally got caught up on that. So now I'm one season behind. I got caught up on a series that I've been enjoying called Turn. So there's a lot of TV that was that I was able to kind of catch in and out of, just like sleeping. And obviously, I was then even more quarantined away from the family, because it's like, okay, well, I've been exposed, and we were able to then finally actually get that COVID test like 5 days later. So there was a gap between the ER visit and my like official test that I was able to do through a drive-through, and that was a whole process in and of itself. But anyway, overall, like it was the worst part of it was the headache, the continual weakness, and just the body aches. And so that I don't think I'll ever forget. And it was just it was terrifying in that way. And that's where I really do appreciate, people kind of reaching out. And then I did see a lot of comments, because it all of a sudden became real weird, because I hadn't posted here in a while, and everybody's like, "Is Brian okay?" Chris posts so rarely that I don't think that was the concern. It usually it's just like, well, wait, we haven't heard from Brian in a day or two. And so that's what kind of when I made sure I put that community post about a week and a half when actually I had the energy to go sit up at a computer. Since then, as we shifted into week 2, I was able to start sitting up. I was able to like pick up a controller, and so I was able to play some games, which was really enjoyable. On Wednesday, I was able to get up, and felt like I could sit at a computer for at least a little bit of time, and so I did that. And then I was able to start easing my way back into it, and I could start to feel the fatigue. And so even right now, even just yesterday, I was able to do like a half day at work. And then I've kind of told them like I'm easing back into it, trying not to stress out my body, because I typically right now, by the afternoon, if I've been working and doing stuff with the kids or helping Julie with that or whatnot, like by the afternoon, I can start to kind of like feel it like in my hands at first, where it's like I just start feeling a little weakness and fatigue. And so it's like this has just been something that just has floored me with how it's impacted me. And one of the things that's so fascinating about it is how it impacts people so differently. That's something that I just can't, in my mind, like I'm just like, wow, it's some people like don't even have any symptoms. So several have asked how are the kids and how's Julie doing? And honestly, so far, like all of them have been really good, which is very good to see. Julie said that definitely she felt something, had some fatigue, but overall, like, they're all pretty good, in pretty good shape, and the kids definitely are. We did, I did stay away from them But I know that if one of them had it, they all had it. And overall, like, I know the ones that don't speak really couldn't tell us otherwise, and they haven't been all that fussy. They've been a little bit, I guess, stir crazy depending on the weather. But I think overall, if in the fact that, that was COVID, then the family seems to be okay with it. That's again, like, coming back to it all, like, I want now to really kind of, at some point, whenever that gets worked out, because I'm seeing all the reports about antibodies tests, like they're not working, or they are working, or they really, like, there's so much unknown. And that's one of the things that when I was talking with the doctors about it, is like, this is so new. Like, it is this learning on the go experience for them. I think just yesterday, they even added new symptoms that people could be having, which was like a loss of smell and taste, which I didn't have. And so there's a wide range of different symptoms and how it affects people. And so I'm really personally interested in, when this is all said and done, when we can look back and say, oh wow, like, we learned so much from it, from the data, when we were like, okay, here's what the impact was. Like, anyway, like, I'm really interested to see, like, when this is all said and done, like, what were the lessons learned overall from it. So at the end of the day, as we've rolled into, like, now week 3, overall, like, each week has been an improvement over the last, but there has been this sense of kind of like this ebb and flow, where it's like, okay, I'm feeling sick again, and then it's like the next day, oh, I'm feeling pretty good, and then and that's kind of like, I've almost kind of described it as this little rippling wave that's happening. And the fact the ER doctor said that's something to look to. Like, he told me, like, in a couple of weeks this could roar back for you. That's when he said, when I first met him. And so right around this last weekend, I was not feeling great again, and I was just like, that's kind of where some of the anxiety really kicked in, because obviously my mind starts wondering, like, what's wrong with me? What's going on? Is this coming back? Is this going to be a whole new thing? Am I going to be down for the count again? It's like, can't afford to be down for the count for that long. Obviously wasn't able to do any work, and thankfully everybody, in a bubble, I could see, like, this could have been really worse, but overall, because, like, everybody's just like, yeah, we're all going through this. Everybody was really kind of rooting for me and praying for me. So I appreciate all the thoughts, the prayers, the comments, the well wishes. It's really meant a lot. I've been itching to kind of get back in here and just kind of sitting down and filming this video. It feels a little weird coming back and talking about it. And obviously I see that, like, when we talk about 5.3 flying and stuff like that's coming back. So I think I don't know if I'm going to film that today. I'm already starting to feel kind of tired from talking just in this video itself. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. If you guys have any questions, let me know in the comments below. Hopefully, I think I covered the entire story of what happened. And again, thanks for watching. And your all support. I'll be sure to toss it over to Feeding America, and hopefully, I don't know what that will end up being. I think the last time we did something like this, we were able to toss the family a couple, like, $25 additional from the ad revenue. So that was really nice. I know. I think when I went and looked at the analytics just the other day, like, ad revenue is, like, way down over the entire site. So it's just, like, fascinating, because it's like, yeah, I guess it's kind of a weird time to do an ad. It's either tone deaf or completely it feels like somebody's trying to take advantage of kind of this whole situation. So it just seems weird. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for the support. Thanks for the comments. Hope you guys are doing well and staying safe. I love you very much, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.